I'm Chase, and this is All Things Rum. Today, we're looking at the Rolex Kermit 16610 LV. Now, any fan of the channel knows that I do have a Rolex Hulk. Now, the reason I like the Hulk is because it just basically looks new all the time. Now, I think one of my watch collecting maturities that I've sort of come to realize is the fact that I bought that watch because I wanted a watch that was a statement piece, green bezel, that's ceramic, green dial, in your face, maxi case, maxi dial, and really I just wanted something that shows everybody that, well, I'm different. Now, as time has gone on, and I feel like I said, I've matured in my watch collecting, I look back at something like the Rolex Kermit 16610 LV, and I'm finding things in it that I like far more than the Hulk. And it's not just the fact that it's more subdued in its actual styling, like it does have a black maxi dial, but with that aluminum green bezel insert. Now, there are things that I love about this watch, things that I don't like about this watch, and things that I'm coming to fall in love with while we go through this video. Now, first, let's talk about this watch. This is the Rolex Kermit 16610 LV. This is a 2006 to 2007 serial number Z edition. Now, I think it was 2011 that they started doing randomized serial numbers. Before then, you could look up the serial number and you could tell exactly what year. This is a Z series, so it's from 2006 to 2007. Now, the reason I really like the 2006 and 2007 is because it is just prior to the Rolex rehaunt along the inside. Like all the new Rolexes will have Rolex around the rehaunt between the crystal and the dial. Now, that looks awesome, but there is something about a smooth rehaunt that just gives more of a vintage aesthetic or vintage feel without going too far back. Now, after 2008, when they started issuing the rehaunt for basically everything, the Rolex rehaunt, you know, that's great. They're trying to stop people from replicating the watch, trying to stop fakes, so they start adding in all these different things that cause difficulty when reproducing the watch. However, again, like I said, there's just something special about the no rehaunt, the aluminum bezel, and the smaller case size of the 2006 and 2007. Now, prior to 2010, 2011, when they released the maxi dial, when they redid the Submariner, released the maxi dial and the maxi case and everything, it's a good watch, but it just feels a little chunky on the wrist. That's what a lot of people would say. A lot of people would say, well, I like the maxi case, but it just feels a little large on the wrist. And with the new release last year of the new Submariners, they've only increased it from 40 to 41 millimeters. This is a 40 millimeter watch, extremely thin. The lugs are extremely thin on this. So because everything just seems a little more delicate, a little more refined, it just fits a little smaller on the wrist. In fact, a watch like the pre-2010 Submariners easily fit underneath the cuff of the wrist. The issue is you're getting into the aluminum bezels and stuff like that, things that scratch, that do not look new over time. Now, this is one of the things that I have really come to love about this Rolex Kermit, is the pure fact that it does have scratches on the aluminum bezel. It does have slight fading that will only increase with time and only give it character for this watch. Now, I personally got this off of Bob's Watches. Now, this did not come with box papers and everything you'd want. It did come with a box. It did have some booklets, and it did have a warranty card from them specifically, but no papers in itself. Not really a big deal, not a deal breaker. Now, the reason I chose a 2006 to 2007 was basically because the price was right. Now, if you look at the actual iterations for the Rolex Kermit, they say that there's basically been about 9 iterations of the actual Rolex Kermit and a little bit of changes and differences throughout. An example would be when they first released in 2003 for the 50th anniversary, they released the flat 4, which means the bezel on the front, the aluminum bezel, the 4 at the 40 actually had a flat top. Now, these things are extremely collectible, and you're going to pay at least $10,000 over what this was just to get the Flat 4. Now, again, that's over what most of them cost right now because there were a limited quantity, a limited production, and honestly, I don't blame them, but it just doesn't look good to me. I don't like the way the bezel looks, and because I don't like the look of the watch, I don't care how rare it is, I'm not going to buy it, let alone spend the cost of a new Submariner on top of this just to be able to get something that has a little more rarity to it. Now, there are a few things that I love about this watch and a few things that I hate about this watch. This does have the caliber 3135, which is Rolex's workhorse before they just switched it in 2020. It was basically in every watch for decades, and it is a solid workhorse. Now, the reason why I like this one is because it's still newer when it comes to watches. Now this, 2007, 2006, we're talking 14 years ago. So because 14 years seems like a long time, it's really not when it comes to watches. In fact, Rolex watches really only need servicing once every 10 years. They say once every 5 years, really it's once every 10 years. So this has already been serviced. I'm good for at least another 10 years. And then I can hand this down to my kids if I want. So because this is built like a tank, I'm not really worried about the age of it, whereas some other watches I may be more concerned with the age. Now, there are a few things that I do not like about this watch. First, let's talk about the bracelet. Now, the bracelets on these do have solid outer links, but hollowed center links. And I'm not really a big fan of that, and I'm also not a big fan of the pressed clasp that are in these older style Rolexes. One of the things that I said that I love the most is the fact that Rolex's innovative Glidelock clasp design was their best thing they ever created, ever, because it allows you to micro adjust on the fly. Now, there are micro adjustments on the side if you want to, and there is a diver's extension that gives you an extra, I think, 5 millimeters of adjustment. However, I'm not going to go from a watch that is feeling a little tight to now one that's way down on my hand because I don't like the loose watch feel. Now, I was wearing this in West Virginia because I just came back on emergency leave, and I was wearing this in West Virginia, and honestly, as the heat changed, I did find some discomfort on my wrist. It was basically suffocating my wrist, and I'd have to take it off more often than I'd like. Now, I do need to do a single micro adjustment, maybe back, and then just wear it slightly loose, and then in the heat, it'll just get perfect. But that's one of the things that I don't like about the older style watches that some people do. Some people love that old feel. However, one of the things that Rolex did was what a lot of companies did, which is use a pressed clasp, and it's just cheap. And then finally they went to the newer milled clasp, the Glidelock clasp. But even if you guys have seen any of my videos in the past, I did a Yachtmaster review, and I was really disappointed that in the Yachtmaster, which was I think $12,000 what my father-in-law paid for it, there's no Glidelock clasp. It looks like a Glidelock style clasp, right? It's milled just like the Rolex Glidelock style that would be on the Submariner, except the center is polished, brushed on the outside, and you open it up and there's no micro adjustments. I mean, there are on the inside, but you have to use a tool to micro adjustment. Huge mistake. There's a lot of things Rolex is doing right, a lot of things they're doing wrong. Now, as I've had this watch, I have just come to fall in love with it more and more and more. Even with its quirky bracelet that makes a little too much noise because of those hollow center links. Honestly, I love the watch. I absolutely do. I don't see myself ever getting rid of it. Is it more collectible? Sure. However, as I wear this more and more and more out in the sun, out on the beach, out just around the town, man, that aluminum bezel is just going to start fading over time, and it's just going to be more and more my watch. Again, it was those things I really did not want in the beginning when I got my Rolex Hulk because I thought ceramic bezel, man, that thing's going to look good forever. Sapphire crystal, that's going to keep that dial looking great forever. And if I need to get a slight polish on the outside, well, guess what? A slight polish isn't going to take off too much material, and it'll come back looking brand new again. And then I really got my hands on this. I really started falling in love with it, and it's just a little quirks about it that just make me love it even more. Yes, aluminum bezel, don't really care. Is that really cheap? Yeah, it is really cheap compared to the ceramic style bezels. And is the bracelet cheaper than the newer style bracelets? Yes, absolutely it is. The finishing on it is still superb. even though it has its dings, its nicks, its scratches, the finishing is still superb like any Rolex would be. But I think it's funny that it has hollowed center links, which I didn't even know until I got the watch. I knew it had a pressed clasp because I knew that the older iterations did. My father-in-law's Explorer 2 that I also reviewed on this channel had that press clasp, and I just absolutely hate it. I think it's the cheapest looking thing in the world, and it really didn't cost them any more money to make, yet they were on extremely expensive watches. I digress with the bracelet and the buckle slash clasp. Now, this is one of those things where you either love it or hate it. I'm starting to love it more and more, even though it is cheap, even though it doesn't have the micro adjustments on the fly that the Glidelock clasp does. I considered for about half a second putting a Glidelock clasp on this, and then I thought to myself, no, it would ruin the entire nostalgia. It would ruin the entire body of the watch, because this is how it came, and unless I'm gonna put something like a NATO strap on it or something like a leather strap or a Cordura strap, I'm gonna keep the original bracelet. I'm going to keep the original clasp, even though I hate them more than anything else. But it is a great looking watch. Now, did I spend too much on it? Sure, maybe I spent too much on it. However, if you look at the prices of watches right now, if I were to go out and try to buy the Kermit, the Starbucks, the Shrek, whatever you want to call it, the brand new iteration of the Kermit with the ceramic bezel and the black dial, I'm looking at spending like $19,000 to get a new watch. $19,000 for a Rolex, for a tool watch, just because of the name. I would rather spend thousands and thousands less and get an older style watch that has far more character, and in my honest opinion, is just a cooler watch. I'll be honest with you, like I said in the past, like I wasn't really sure about getting this. However, I'm so happy that I did. Now, I did get some new watches in the mail today. MMI watches. They sent me 2 watches, the turrets, that I will be reviewing in the future. You see right here, I got some shoes that I will be doing a review on in 2 days. That's going to be dropping. You guys have heard me talk in the past about my family going to Hawaii at the end of March, and I will be taking a lot of equipment with me so I can do a lot of reviews. One of the things I'm going to be doing a review on while I'm there are those shoes. I'm going to be doing an unboxing. Like I said, videos dropping in 2 days. 2 more watches coming up in the queue to review, one at a time, because they're completely different watches. So even though they are the turrets, one turret looks way different than the other turret, so I'm going to be doing 2 separate videos on that. I'm going to be doing an update on the channel and the equipment that I'm going to start using to hopefully make better content for you guys, and just finished a dive video, scuba diving in Alaska. I put that stuff on Instagram. If you guys do not follow me on Instagram, go to All Things Random AK, and you'll find basically the same logo that's on YouTube, and that's me. And you guys will see I keep things updated. I tell you guys basically what I'm going to be reviewing and what's going on in my life. Now, if you like videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment on the content you guys would like to see on this channel. I have a lot of videos coming up in the future. Hopefully, my Aventi A10 Titanium Tourbillon will be here by the time I get back from Hawaii, and that is a watch that I'm so looking forward to reviewing and really just giving it my honest opinion from start to finish, from ordering to receiving. Hopefully that video will be coming in April. I'll see you guys in the next one.